In this opportunity, I'd like to share with you the basic points of sociometry. As we mentioned before, Moreno worked about the relationships, what happening between people, and he called that tele. It's what we feel and we sense in relation to the other person that sometimes is very hard to name, but he was able to simplify that in three categories. One is what I feel an attraction and a sense of approach or the desire to go closer to the person or moving away. He called that acceptance. We call that good. It's a good relationship. It's a good feeling. The other one is he called rejection, a sense of wanting to have a distance from the other person, to put like almost not wanting to be with the other person, not like that. So they call that rejection. We call that problematic. And there are other ones that we call indifferent. We call it neutral, that we may like to be with a person or not, that it doesn't matter. The other thing is that when we think about relationships, we don't think about the whole relationship we have in our life. That could be hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people. We usually think about groups, like my family group, my community group, my people who go to church or people who go to activities, like community activities, or where they live, the neighborhood. And we cluster relationships. Even the families. Sometimes we don't think about the family. No, we talk about a small family from that side of the family, my father, my mother, my uncle. And this way of thinking makes these big relationships in smaller clusters. Moreno called those clusters social atoms. That is a reduction of the whole number of people into key people who are relevant for a specific type of relationships. So the concept of social atom is very important, that we use that term to use in the RCompass. So when we depict a group of people into the stage, as you're going to see very soon, is the cluster of that relationship. It could be a family, could be work, could be friends. And we call that social atom. So within the social atom are the people. And in that people are the relationships. And each social atom has a special type of relationship, a special flair, a special characteristic. Each group and social atom has their own personality. It's like where we said, oh, I like to go to that family meeting. I say, oh, no, I don't want to go there. So in the same way that we feel with individual members or individual people, we also feel about groups. And it's important to know that. So we have the concept of tele, that for Moreno is an empathy or double action. What I feel towards the other person, but it's very important for me to know what the other person feels and thinks about me. And this is the essence, what Goleman called emotional intelligence, and then evolved to emotional and social intelligence. The essence of emotional and social intelligence is the core of sociometry. How am I aware of my emotions and feelings? Where am I aware of the emotions and feelings of the other person? And how to identify and manage the relationship between others and I. This is the core of life. How to relate to life, how to relate to the people that I'm living with, relating with. And this is why we are connecting that later on to the roles we play. And that happens, again, sorry for being repetitive, within a cluster of people that we call it social atom. Another thing that we add in the RCompass that is not part of sociometry, we have added that from a tool that is used in corporate called Team Management Profile, or TMS, Team Manager Systems. They use a way of looking at relationships in a very clever way. We name it a little bit different, but what they see is how we relate. And one of the ways that we relate, for example, is there are people who are extroverted and people who are introverted. Sometimes we feel that we don't like someone for whatever reasons, but when we look at this type of characteristics, sometimes start to making sense and say, now I know where I feel uncomfortable, I don't like that person. For example, a person who is extroverted, and this term is very different to the Myers-Briggs, extroverted or introverted in Myers-Briggs has the meaning that I get my energy from outside, from others, the extroverted, and I get the energy from within myself, that is introverted. We don't use the term like the Myers-Briggs. Extroverted in this case is the person that thinks aloud. Is a person that is talking to you but doesn't have the concept already clear. Is creating the concept as the person talks to you. And usually that person interrupts others and doesn't mind to be interrupted. It's a flow of conversation. Sometimes it's a mess. And when somebody is talking and the person is asking a question, the extroverted person assumes that knows the answer and start answering even before the person finished. This is like an extreme extroverted. So you ask the question and the person starts talking and answering as the person is constructing the idea. The introvert, from another hand, when you ask the person a question, the person may look at you like the person is dead, but it's not dead. It's thinking inside and will not open the mouth until they have constructed an idea. And when they usually do, it's very concise and very clear and has very little fluff compared to the extroverted. So can you imagine if you're in a relationship system when you are extroverted and you want to talk to somebody and the other person doesn't respond to you, you might cry, say, for the goodness sake, no one answer, talk to me. And can you imagine how the other person feels? The introverted will say, for the goodness sake, can you shut up? Can you let me think? So this is a part in RCompass that we also assess. That's called the characteristics of each person in the social atom. The other thing is the way we communicate, that sometimes there are people who are very direct. For example, in an email. In an email, the people will say hi, or may not even say hi. These are my 3 points I'd like to discuss. Boom, 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 boom. This is a direct way of communicating, like ticking box, pop, 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 dotted points. And then we have the other person that writes you an email that is like a novel, and writes and explains because of this, on that, and that. So we call one direct, and the other one embellished. And there are people who are direct, and by cross the other person, they say, what, you don't have any sensitivity. You're so cold. It's not cold, it's just direct. And the other person will feel, for the goodness sake, don't send me an essay when you want to tell me, would you like to go for dinner? Just ask me, would you like to go for dinner? That's it. So that also crosses ourselves and we makes feel uncomfortable with each other without knowing. So start knowing these things, we start laughing at ourselves. So, oh, this is me, and this is the other person, and that it will start knowing the other person better. Remember the essence of emotional and social intelligence, knowing myself and knowing the other. And also, sometimes we make decisions and we need to have a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of analysis. The person will make a decision to have a holiday after they have read a lot of reviews, in Google, in books, talking to people, how to research and then make the decision. And then we have the other person that is a belief system. It's a person who is just intuitive, have the intuition. I like to go to Bali. I like to go there. Why? Because I like it. And they make a decision. I like to buy a new fridge because I like it and I like that one. I like to do this, I like to do that because it's an intuition. So can you imagine if these two people are married or they're friends and they need to make a decision, the conversation becomes so complicated. And a lot of tension may come from that. So knowing who is an analytical and the other one who is an intuitive person is important to know. The last things that we measure too and we assess if this person is structured or if the person is unstructured. For example, for me, when I used to go to the US, I used to fly and I never booked a room in LAX. I would look at the hotels. At that time was not internet, and I will go to the phone and find a hotel. But then my wife is an ultra structured that she will plan everything. Even we used to live in a small place in Australia, and there was a coffee shop that there was almost always empty. She will call to book a table. So can you imagine the difference of these two people when they plan something, how difficult could be? So there are people who are very structured and they need to plan. They need to look ahead. And if they need to go to a meeting at 4, is at 4. And they will be there maybe 10 to 4 or even before. For a flexible, if the meeting is at 4 in the afternoon, it's around mid-afternoon. May come at 3, may come at 5. So can you imagine how the tension that creates? So the RCompass measures the distance between people. Do I want to have somebody close to me or not? What happened in between us, that is called the telly, is good, is problematic or neutral. And also measures that there are people who are in a tense relationship in a family and they are moving towards, I want to make this family better. And other people say, I don't care. So you measure also that level of desire. I would like to put the best of me to make this work better, or I don't care. And in reality, I don't really want to. It measures that energy that we have. That is so important. So the RCompass, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to use the app. But it's important for you to have in mind all of these, let's call it forces, because these are the things we are going to measure, and that will help us to make a diagnosis, a picture, a situational analysis. Wow, this is what is happening in this social atom. If I like it, how to strengthen it. And the things that are not flowing very well, what can I do about it? Because the idea of life is to lift our relationship capital. And saying about that, I forgot to mention that in the application there is an algorithm underneath the algorithm that creates what is called a relationship capital index. We're going to see that in the other video. That gives a number from 1 to 5 in how is the relationship capital of that system. Fantastic. So having that information allows me to see how can I start moving toward having relationships that are more a gain than a drain. How can I start working with people in a way that can do the best towards that relationship, but also how can I learn to confront, to talk to other people in ways to lift our relationship for good. So stay tuned and let's move to the next video to learn how to use the RCompass application.